We can get a better recording this time. Part 1. Ascension of the Ninth Roman Legion. Jesus.
Make sure you go support him and check out his book on Amazon. The link will be in the description. Thank you guys for tuning in. I love you all.
I'm about to listen to this again, but for you guys, I will. Except for
To say
live,
I've lived a long life would be an understatement. I've lived many lifetimes. I've loved many families. I've seen empires rise and fall like the sun.
Tuning in, you get to listen to it again.
I've seen humanity's barbarism and savagery morph from swords and spears to bullets and bombs.
Sucked.
In my youth, I enjoyed war. I enjoyed the blood and glory. Or at least, the idea of it. But when you live a life as I have, when your years are as endless as mine, when you see so many lives lost, you realize war is a tragic waste of short lives. Especially when men kill other men. Historians say that the Ninth Roman Legion vanished without a trace, with the last known sign of them being an inscription on a legionary base at Nijmegen in the Netherlands, which dates to around 120 AD. From there, historians don't know if the Legion was destroyed in one of several Roman wars, or if it was destroyed in a rebellion. Most originally theorized the Ninth fell in Britain. Some still believe this theory, but it's just a theory nonetheless. The Ninth disappeared from Roman texts in the early 2nd century, but it's one thing to theorize about history. It's another to live it.
Alright. A little irritating. I have to listen to this again, but
I lied about my age to
That's
join the
fine.
legions.
I'll do it.
The requirement was for you to be at least 17. I was 15. A child by today's standards. Yet I yearned for the heat of battle and the taste of glory. It was a fantasy I carried all my life. I didn't grow up in a noble house. I didn't have a rich family name. I didn't have connections with the emperor or the senate. I was just me, a Roman citizen called Marcus. And the training was hard. It wasn't the worst 4 months of my life, though. After training, I was assigned to the Ninth, despite training with the 11th. At the time, the Ninth was stationed about 100 miles southwest of Jerusalem. When I arrived, I was greeted by a tall man of broad build. He was maybe 20 years my senior. He was to be the centurion of my century. I called him Maxis. He very quickly made it known that he was aware of my age. You lied about your age, did you? He said with a smirk as I approached him. His voice was booming. I stammered as my heart skipped a beat. I could have you flogged for that, he said with a raised, bushy brow. I honestly didn't know what to say. I didn't expect to be outed so very quickly. How old are you? 12? 13? 15, I said sheepishly. 15? Are you sure? I nodded as Maxis looked me up and down. We stood just outside the city of tents that made up the Ninth camp. Come then, let us meet the Primus Pilus. The Primus Pilus, for those of you who don't know, is the senior centurion in the Roman Legion. They are the 4th in command in the Legion, behind the Prefect, then Tribune,
For those who
Legion,
don't know, like, how
or
would you
Legion
know?
Commander. Now, the Ninth Legion at this particular time was different from most, if not all legions that came before it. Yes, most Legion commanders were typically politicians or senators. One could even be a governor of a province. The Ninth commander at this point in time was lost to history. In fact, the Ninth was also kept off the record at this point in time as well. Our Legion commander was called Quintus. Commander Quintus was different. Maxis led me to the Primus Pilus tent while the man was meeting with the commander. They were both looking down at a map of the nearby area. At Primus Pilus, a bald man called Luke was pointing to an area. Locals said they fled into the mountain pass, a day's march for most armies, a few hours for us. He said. Quintus stroked his chin. One could tell by looking at him that he was an intelligent man. His armor was darker than most Legion commanders. It was like it was made from a different metal altogether. He also didn't wear the typical red that was associated with the Roman army. He had traded it in for black. And how many did the locals say? 3 hellhounds. Only 3? I thought there'd be more. They're hellhounds, Commander. They're still dangerous to the uninitiated. Luke reminded him. Quintus thought for a second, before his eyes rested on Nexus and I. Yes, Centurion? He asked. We've got ourselves some new blood, Commander. Ah, I see. Has he been initiated yet? Nexus turned and glanced at me before looking at the Commander. He only just arrived. Luke smirked at him as he straightened up. He looks young. Did he lie about his age? Yes he did. Nexus said. Typical. Let me ask you something, boy. Why did you wish to join the Legions? Do you consider yourself a patriot? Luke asked. I don't have anything to my name. No family, no house, no titles or land. So you want to make a name for yourself? He remembered. Quintus asked. Yes, Commander. Quintus took a deep breath. I'm sorry, kid. You'll find none of that here. Luke said. He glanced at him in confusion. You think I won't be a good soldier? I asked. You wouldn't be here if you thought you wouldn't. What do you know of this Legion? Asked Quintus. It's a Legion, like any other? Quintus grunted before drawing in a deep breath. Like any other. Luke chuckled. If you're worried about my age, I can prove myself. I'm ready. He said, almost all too eagerly. Very much misreading the situation. Nexus. Take. What was your name? Marcus. Take Marcus on a scouting mission to the mountains. If he survives, see that he's initiated properly. Quintus said with a smile. Yes, Commander. Nexus replied. His massive hand fell on my shoulder as he pulled me out of the tent. What did he mean by initiated properly? I asked. Nexus didn't reply. He just continued, dragging me along. He brought me to a tent where we were greeted by 2 other men. One a Thracian called Crixus, and the other a Greek who went by Solarius. You two, pack your things. We're moving out. Nexus commanded. And the 2 of them eyed me. Yes, he's coming with us. Nexus barked, as if he was reading their minds. I was very confused. I was also very tired after having such a long march. I glanced at my Centurion. What's wrong, soldier? Having second thoughts? No, I said abruptly. Nexus smiled widely. Very well then. Let's go hunting. I admittedly didn't think much of Quintus' mentioning of the Hellhounds. Personally, I guess I thought they'd be rebels or something similar. Maybe I was just tired. Nexus led the 3 of us to a mountain pass. It was dusk when we arrived, and the sun was starting to set at our backs. I was exhausted from the journey. I wasn't sure how the other 3 men weren't. Nexus had asked me several times if they needed to slow down, but I was young. I had everything to prove. And the pass itself was narrow. One could get a row of 5 to 6 men in between the jagged rocks on either side. Luckily, There were only 4 of us. I can remember stopping just outside of it. The stench of rotten blood seemed to inch its way up my nose. So Larry stopped next to me. Definitely hellhounds. Their den is probably close by, he said as he pressed forward. I glanced over at Max's. My grip on my pylon tightened. Then, I asked, only now realizing that I should have asked more questions to begin with. I noticed Solaris and Crixus moving ahead of us. I thought this was just a scouting mission, I said. Keep your shield up, boy, Maxis replied as he motioned me to come with him. I did as commanded. My leg muscles ached, as did the rest of me. We entered the pass cautiously. Crixus and Solaris were at the front. Both of them had their shields up and their swords out. We moved slowly, silently, our eyes peeled, and our weapons ready. The air seemed thick and musty. All was quiet. That was when we came round the bend. I can remember, because the sun had finished going down. I wasn't sure why, but I could feel my heartbeat accelerating. Take a breath, boy, Maxis replied in a hushed tone, almost like he could hear it. It was then that we heard the shuffle of some rocks. I turned quickly, my spear ready. The movement was coming from a ledge that wasn't 20 feet above me. It was hard to see, especially in the dark. I readied to launch my pylon at it, but Maxis grabbed my shoulder. Don't, he whispered, right as a massive vulture came flapping off the ledge and into the sky. I felt my body go from tense to relaxed. I exhaled. But the moment I did, a long howl sounded off. It was like that of a wolf, but deeper, more pronounced. It also sounded extraordinarily close. It felt like my heart jumped into my throat. Solaris and Crixus moved forward around the bend, leaving my line of sight. Stay calm, boy, Maxis commanded in a hushed tone. I lied. We rounded the bend and found Crixus and Solaris standing at the base of a cave. The entrance was gaping. It stood almost 20 feet tall. It was already dark on the mountain. The inside of the cave was nothing but a void. We were surrounded on 2 sides by even more ledges. I kept my eyes on them almost instinctively. As we approached the cave, I could feel my stomach start to churn as the smell became overwhelming. I think we found it then, Solaris said. Do we go inside? I asked. A hellhound then? Are you daft? Asked Crixus. Leave him alone, Maxis said as he knelt down ahead of us. He was looking at something down in the dirt. Something I recognized as wolf print. Only this one was massive. So massive, in fact, that I could stick my entire hand inside of it. What have I gotten myself into? I muttered to myself. That was when we heard the bark. Maxis shut up. Form a shield wall. Have your pylon ready. Solaris and Crixus sheathed their swords and pulled their spears from their backs. That was when something inside the black void moved. 3 sets of glowing red orbs appeared. It took me all of 3 seconds to figure out what they were. Eyeballs, blazing red, and filled with malicious hatred. They stood maybe 6 feet off the ground. Every bone in my body screamed for me to run. But I didn't. I stood my ground. Hold your ground, Maxis commanded before turning to me. Whatever happens, boy, do not run. I swallowed hard. That was when the red eyes in the center began to move closer. The beast walked to the mouth of the cave. I don't remember if I pissed myself or not. I certainly may have. The beast was a black wolf. Black wolf was larger than a full-size horse. Its red eyes were focused on me. It snarled, showing its massive white teeth. Solaris, Maxis said. The man lunged his pylon at the beast. The throw was hard. His spear moved faster than any I'd ever seen. Maybe even faster than a missile from a ballista. It hit the wolf in the shoulder. The creature yelped as it fell. I blinked a few times, trying to comprehend what I had just seen. But there wasn't any time, as the two other wolves were suddenly growling and sprinting in our direction. I was at the outer edge of the shield wall. The second beast came forth from the cave. Maxis commanded. Maxis launched his spear. The wolf had only just watched his brother fall. He had ducked under the spear and charged forward, ramming into our shield wall hard. I got most of the force and was rocketed off my feet and onto the ground. I lost my shield. I battled with the other three men as I tried to regain my bearings. Only I found the third wolf standing over me. His glowing red eyes seemed to bore into my soul. Oh, fuck. Was all I managed to get out before its jaws came down. I managed to get my spear up, but barely. Its jaws ripped from my hands before it snapped the wooden handle off the pylon in two. I struggled to my feet as I yanked my gladius from its sheath. The beast growled at me and charged. I didn't have time to run. I stepped out of the way, barely dodging its massive jaws. I slashed at its neck several times, but my sword only seemed to glance off. The wolf replied with a swipe of its paw that sent me tumbling forwards towards the mouth of the cave. I just happened to land right next to the first wolf's corpse, and the beast bared its teeth at me. I swallowed hard as I realized I dropped my sword, my hands reaching out for anything it could, only resting as they found Solaris' pylon. I managed to yank it out, just as the hellhound charged at me again. Holding it out, the pointy end first. There was a loud squelch that was followed by a yelp. The next thing I knew, the beast was limp on top of me, a warm liquid running down my hands and chest. I'd killed the beast, but I wasn't strong enough to get it off of me. It took a few seconds before the beast moved. Maxis helps me get to my feet, a massive smile across his face. By the gods, he survived. I could see Solaris and Grixis standing over the corpse of the wolf that had charged them. That's when I realized that Maxis had moved the wolf by himself. I wanted to ask questions. What were those things? How did he do that? What in Neptune's creamy ball sack had I gotten myself into? But I was also tired and, quite frankly, thankful to be alive. And you killed that fucker too. Not bad for an uninitiated man like yourself. I chuckled under my breath. I was honestly just happy he didn't call me boy again. There was a little fanfare when we made it back to camp. We'd camped out for the night and left in the morning. We reached camp in the afternoon. Admittedly, my aching body slowed the group down. Maxis took me into a tent near the center of the camp, where I found Quintus waiting for us. The boy proves himself a man, he said with a smile. My body was still in pain. Maxis stood next to me. I'd never seen a tent set up the way Quintus had arranged this one. It was almost empty, aside from a large white marble box in the center. One that was filled with a red substance that I couldn't identify. I honestly thought it was wine at first. Quintus could tell that I was sore. He exhaled slowly. Oh no, what is that? I asked as I looked at the marble box. That? He asked. That is what's going to make all that muscle aching go away. So, it's wine? I asked. Quintus chuckled. You understand more after your initiation. Fighting those wolves was my initiation? I asked. No, that was a test. And you passed. You didn't run away. Max is safe from behind me. Well then, what's my initiation going to be? Quintus took a deep, almost sudden breath before giving me a soft smile. Oh, sorry, kid. You won't understand if I explain it. Then,
Dang, this thing shoots hard.
I felt the sharp pain in
Way
my
better
back
than the other one.
as the air was driven out of my lungs.
Iron.
I tried to gasp, but it didn't work.
That was the hit.
It was only then that I noticed the blade sticking out of my chest. I tried to speak,
Come on,
to
baby.
ask why. But again, nothing came out. My eyes glanced upward at Quintus, who had a sudden look in his eyes.
I love this thing. I wish I could make
It's okay, Marcus. Maxis said into my ear as he held his sword from my back. Everything faded to black after that. I'd say there's
Oh
no
my.
death.
Oh my!
But honestly, my soul
Oh my god, he's like every shot! No
I had to
worse.
see heaven, hell, toilers, or Elysium.
Oh my Jesus.
Instead, I woke up submerged in something that had the consistency of blood.
Semen.
I tried to open my eyes,
Let's see.
but the liquid stung them. I sat up fast, erupting from the surface and trying to take a breath. But the liquid had filled my lungs.
Oh no.
Instead,
You don't want to see
I
me
let out
anymore.
a series of overly dramatic coughs as red liquid gushed from my mouth and onto the 10th floor. My eyes adjusted, and I found myself staring at the white marble on the side of the box. He's back. A voice said from beside me. I glanced over to find Quintus standing next to me. I was a bit delirious. Everything in my body hurt, and the sounds pelting my ears were obnoxious and nauseating. I could hear the whole camp, from the flies buzzing in the tree line to a centurion masturbating 2 tents down. My hand shut to my ears.
Centurion masturbating too
I think
fast.
a little to muffle the voice. Easy, easy. Let yourself settle. Maxis said, as he helped me to my feet. I turned to him with wide eyes. And there he was. The man who had stabbed me in the back. I shoved him hard, but he barely moved an inch. Instead, I fell backward, falling out of the box and onto the ground beneath me. You stabbed me! I groaned. Maxis turned to Quintus, and then back at me. I did. I'm sorry I had to do that. But that's how the initiation works. I don't give a damn about your initiation. You killed me. I stopped and looked down at my naked chest. There was a scar where the blade had erupted from it. Not a cut, not a gash. A full-on, already healed scar. Oh, I murmured. It's called the Omega Potion. Quintus stated. The Omega Potion.
Steven feeling it.
Yes. Tell me something, Marcus. Do you know why the Ninth hasn't been on any records in the last 20 years? Quintus asked. It hasn't. No, because we don't exist to fight Rome's endless wars. Not anymore. As far as most are concerned, the Ninth was lost in Britannia.
I don't know what to do.
But how was I assigned here then? I asked.
I bet you they're in that chest.
Quintus sighed. As Maxis again helps me to my feet. There are few who know of our existence. They pick the recruits. Most don't have any friends or family. No one to miss them or look for them when they're gone. No attachments. It makes things easier. Especially with the effects of the Omega Potion.
Omega Potion.
Effects. You may have noticed your chest is healed. You can hear Luke touching himself in his tent. Quintus stated. Among other things, Maxis said sarcastically, it also makes you fast, strong, almost godly. You won't age past 25. I looked over at Maxis. The older man smirked at me. I was already this beautiful when I got it, he said. I turned back to Quintus, who was still watching me. So, I can't die? I asked. You absolutely can die. There's a good chance you will. I reformed the Ninth to protect the world from the dangers lurking in the shadows. To conquer the enemy's enemies. Dangers? You mean there's more than just hellhounds out there? I asked. Hellhounds, rogue gods, demons, all sorts of beasts. They're all out there. And you're gonna have to face them. Speaking of, Maxis, show him to his new arsenal, he said. Maxis did as he was told. He led me to my tent. I was to be sharing one with Solaris, Maxis, and 7 other soldiers, all of which greeted me warmly. Maxis was our Decanus, the one in charge of the 10 of us. There, Maxis gave me my new weapons. A new shield, Gladius, and a pylon.
This Game of Thrones.
Only, they felt lighter than the ones I had.
I'm not done.
I wasn't sure if it was because I was stronger, or if they were made of something else. I guess it showed on my face. They're made from heavenly steel, as will your armor. The weapons can be powered by your soul's energy. Maxis said.
You ready?
My soul's energy? Maxis held up the sword. The blade was black, with the edges starting to red yellow color. I remember being slightly mesmerized by it, and reaching out to touch the light. Maxis pulled the sword back. It will burn the fuck out of you. I chuckled under my breath. My apologies, I said. This is only exhaled. Over the next 10 years, I fought in countless battles against all manner of beasts and demons. We fought all over the
New
Empire,
chapter, by the way.
from Gaul to Greece. I was good at it. I worked all the way up to the level of Centurion, while Maxis became the Primus Pilus. I was one of the 6 Centurions in his cohort, along with both Solarix and Crixus. Then came one fateful day. I was called into Quintus's tent by Maxis. We were camped out on a beach in Britannia. Our mission there had been to track down what we thought was a druid priest that had been dabbling into black magic and creating revenants. It was not an easy spell, and most required training directly from a demonic entity to do it. We were concerned. We had spent a few weeks trying to track them to no avail. It was as if they knew our plans as we made them. Our local contact, another druid magician called Merlin. Yes, that Merlin was in Quintus's tent with him. The man wasn't anything like the portrayed in the movies and stories. He wasn't, or didn't appear to be very much older than myself. He had a head full of shaggy red hair and a thin beard. He also smelled horrible, like a mixture of vomit and goat piss. He wore white robes and glared at me the moment I walked in. Marcus, Quintus greeted. Commander? I greeted in response. I was just talking to Merlin here about our battle against the children of Sobek in Egypt. They were repulsive, I said plainly. That they were. But you all held your ground, which actually brings me to why I called you to an ear. We remember what exactly they were after. He asked. Something about a magical stone in the area? Said Maxis. Something like that. Any of you ever heard the worshippers of the Abrahamic god talk of a man called Cain? Both Maxis and I shook our heads. Quintus nodded. They believe that he was among the first family of men. He murdered his brother over some sheep and was cursed for it. Well, that story is close. It's incomplete. He didn't murder his brother for sheep. He murdered his brother for the archdemon Lilith, who had spent the better part of a year filling his head with dreams of power. She taught him how to use black magic. In turn, he became her apostle, her disciple on Earth. Together they created, or maybe found what we call, the Philosopher's Stone. Quintus explained. What does it do? I asked.
I did not know that.
In simple terms, it's a powerful source of magic,
They add to it.
strong enough to pull apart entire planets if that's what the user wills. Maxis stroked his chin. If it's powerful enough to do that, then why hasn't Lilith or Cain used it to destroy the planet? And Lilith tried. Cain, however, decided that destroying the entire human race wasn't the best idea. And to said. He took it and ran. Merlin replied. And how do we know this? Maxis asked. Who do you think taught Merlin the mystical arts? Quintus said. So what does this have to do with the Revenants? I asked. We think the Druid is after the stone as well,
Yes, like a homo biopic.
said Merlin. That's why they've been terrorizing villages. We think he's trying to flush Cain out. Quintus said. What do we know of this Druid? Absolutely nothing. We don't even know if it is a Druid. All we know is that someone is controlling the Revenants by the hundreds, maybe thousands. Which brings me to my next point. Your assignment.
Always Lilith.
Cain is held up in a cave a few miles north of here. I want you to take your sentry and protect it, while we try our hand at hunting them down. I will personally command the rest of your cohort while you are gone. Quintus said.
Nice swing saw, dude. Nice.
Are you sure Marcus and I may be your best chance at finding them?
Learn to love
Maxis said. I'm sure. Protecting that stone is of the utmost importance. I wouldn't assign the task to anyone else.
Piece of crap.
Maxis sighed deeply, before turning and looking in my direction. Let's go then, he said, as he started to walk out. We both stopped at the tent's entrance. Oh, and Maxis, you two know the plan. Stick to it.
I saw them.
Maxis and I marched to my sentry, with Merlin acting as our guide. The journey was like any other. 10 years prior, it would have made my legs ache. Now, it was like taking an evening stroll. I had grown used to the enhancements in my time with the Ninth. I'd also grown used to life on the move. We were never in the same place longer than we had to be. This was my third time in Britannia. It only occurs to me now, all these years later, that we never really had a true home. Merlin guided us to a dense forest. So dense that Maxis and I had my sentry marching in rows of four. Merlin was in front, followed by me, Maxis, and Augustus. Augustus was my right-hand man, so to speak. He was one of the Tucanas in my sentry. The forest was quiet. This only hit me an inch. Thanks to the Omega potion, I could hear a mouse running through the brush at 100 yards. And still, I heard nothing in this forest. You noticed it too? Maxis asked. That the forest is deathly silent, or that Merlin smells like gold pigs? I replied. So are you sure that is in your centurion? Augustus asked from behind me. Very funny, I said in response. Merlin, Maxis barked. Merlin stopped and turned back to the Primus pilots. Yes? How much further? Another mile or so. There's a cave on the edge of this forest. That's where they'll be. Merlin said with a smirk, before turning and continuing on. Maxis turned to me. Not like this, he said. Neither do I. I turned and signaled Augustus to have the men ready themselves. I tightened my grip on my shield. Merlin continued onward. We walked for a few more minutes before we came to the side of a cliff, which contained a cave that was maybe 10 feet off the ground. Here we are, Merlin said. Kane is up there? I asked. Merlin shrugged. That's where he's been spending his time. Great, I said, as I handed my shield and spear to Augustus before I approached the opening. It took a single jump for me to clear the opening. Enhanced strength and all that. I landed lightly. The cave was vast. It smelled like cooked meat. In the distance, I could see a small fire burning in the back. A lone man sat next to it, cradling something. I started to approach when I heard someone land behind me. I turned to see Maxis standing there. He was followed by Merlin, who seemed to float inside. Is that him? I asked. Merlin nodded. Maxis and I approached cautiously, neither of us really knowing what to expect. When I finally reached him, I found a rabbit cooking over the fire.
Whoa!
Kane was a slender man, with olive skin and dark hair. He didn't look at us as we came closer. Marcus and Maxis, how very nice it is to meet you. Officially, I mean. I saw you two fight in Egypt. And those children of Sobek are ravenous, he said in a soft voice. We stood silently. Please, sit. Would you like some rabbit? He said, as he gestured for us to sit down across from me. I sat, but declined the rabbit. Maxis stood with his hand on his sword. I didn't blame him. You have the stone? Maxis asked. I do. I never leave home without it. That was when I noticed what King had been cradling. A massive red gem that seemed to glow faint red where he'd arrested. I swallowed hard. She's coming for me, you know. She's always coming for me. Who? I asked. The Red Queen. Mother of monsters. The Maiden of Gehenna. That's why I'm in this cave. Now, before I get much further, I have to explain something. Demons are, or were, a strange bunch. While they weren't banned from Earth entirely, they weren't welcome. Most that walked among humans kept their heads down, except for a few. We had a story that was told to us by Quintus himself, about how Gehenna used to have free reign to terrorize everyone that he could. Until Heaven stepped in. I guess enough was enough. Heaven bequeathed a young man called Enoch a sword. Enoch in turn led humanity to war alongside Heaven's archangels.
How are people queefing?
A war known as the First Gehennian War. A war that ended when the Archangel Michael defeated Lucifer for the second time since the rebellion.
Queefing.
Rather than die, Gehenna and Heaven came to an agreement. Gehenna would continue the constant invasions of Earth and would keep its sovereignty. And the doorway between the realms would remain unlocked, but monitored. Gehennian beings on Earth would be required to report before being allowed entry. Which means, if Lilith was wandering around, we'd know. Now, accidents do happen. One of the demons used to escape all the time and cause problems. But they were never acting on Lucifer's orders. If they were, that would mean war. This was the queen we were talking about. His queen. There were, however, some ways around having to report. Like a demon sending its essence up to Earth and finding a body to possess.
God.
Now, I know what you're thinking.
Something brutal, man.
I'm a Roman. Romans have their own gods. Why am I talking about Abrahamic mythology? The Roman, Greek, Egyptian, Norse, and most of the others do exist. But like everything else, the stories aren't exactly one for one. Anyway, I'm getting off topic. Lilith is in Britannia? How do you know it's her? Maxis asked. He looked down at the stone and exhaled. She wants the stone. I can sense her essence. We are connected. Her and I. Can you stop speaking in fucking riddles? Maxis barked. Kane closed his eyes and smiled. The cave suddenly lit up. Torches sparked to life, brightly revealing cave paintings on the walls. Maxis instinctively drew his sword. Kane opened his eyes and stood. It was then he noticed a table set up against one of the walls. The table was adorned with candles and covered in what looked like runes. It's an old blood magic spell. A trade of swords. Back when I was her vessel on Earth. Some of her still remains. You let her possess you? I asked. Yes. She couldn't come herself. Lucifer forbid it. He still does. But I don't think she cares anymore. Instead, she used me to destroy, to maim and murder. This was after the war, of course. After she was banished from her earthly body. I eventually took back control. I used the stone to purge her from my mind. But there are pieces that still remain. If what you're saying is true, it would be more. Max is dead. If what he's saying is true, then Quintus has his work cut out for him. An archdemon of her magnitude may be too much for an Omega soldier. Maybe even the Ninth itself. I said. Maxis turned to me and smirked. You've been here 10 years, you still don't know all the secrets. I was about to inquire what he meant by that, when I heard the demonic screech coming from outside the cave. Kane only smiled at this. Quintus may have miscalculated how quickly she'd find me. Maxis looked at Kane. Quintus miscalculates nothing. I admired Maxis' blind faith in our leader, even when I myself was questioning it. But in all honesty, Quintus had never steered us wrong before. Yes, men had died before, but it was an occupational hazard. I ran out to the mouth of the cave. Augustus had arranged the men in a circular formation around the cave. That formed the shield wall that was 2 men deep. He was a good man. He had done exactly as instructed. I looked out into the forest. I could smell them before I saw them. The rotten corpses of pigs, shambling our way. Some were armed, and some weren't. There were hundreds, if not thousands of them. I glanced back at Maxis, who gave me a nod before I jumped down. The walking corpses were only a few feet away from the shield wall. Pylon, front line, I commanded. The soldiers in the front line threw their spears. Several of the dead fell. Some didn't. Some missed altogether. But doing this only opened the floodgates. It went from shambling to full-on sprinting. Before I could get another word in, they had slammed hard into the outer shield wall. But my men were strong. The shields held firm. But that didn't stop several from climbing over. Most of which were cut down by the second line. I still hadn't gotten my shield back. I had my sword out, and the blade was burning blue. A revenant had jumped over the wall and charged me. This one looked like she used to be a picked woman, wielding what looked to me like a kitchen knife. She very quickly removed her head from her body. The next thing I saw was Augustus. He was removing a sword from one of the revenants. I looked back up at the wall. It was still holding. And by this time, Maxis had landed behind me, as had Merlin. That was when we floated from the room. I stood still. The flood of walking corpses was still coming in from the forest. But my eyes caught something else. Something large and lumbering. It was a creature of which I'd never seen in person. Oh shit, I grumbled. The beast was massive and humanoid in appearance. Its bald, running head almost reached the treetops. The undead giant snarled as it used its massive foot to kick its way to my lines, causing a massive melee. The beast looked down at Maxis and I. We both raided our swords. This is gonna hurt, isn't it? I asked. Augustus chuckled. Maxis exhaled. Then fucking Merlin started chanting in a language I'd never heard before, whilst raising his hands. Before I could ask him what he was doing, a massive hole in the fire seemed to conjure up underneath the giant's feet before it swallowed him whole. And the creature, maybe realizing it was dying, reached out with its tree-trunk-sized arm in an effort to grab me. But its body was ash before it got the chance. We all turned and looked at Merlin, who winked and smiled at us. Maxis and I turned back to the melee. Our men were holding their own, but we were very clearly being overrun. Remember the plan, Maxis said. Plan's already going to shit. Still, I know. I blinked as I turned to Augustus. As soon as their priest shows their face, he fired that arrow. I commanded. Augustus began pulling the bow from his back, while Maxis and I tried our best to reform the lines. It was a bloody affair. I remember seeing one of the men having their entrails dug out by 2 or 3 of the creatures. I tried to save him. I really did. But there were just so many of them. I'd kill 5, and 10 more would show up. The battle went on for a good 30 minutes, before we managed to reform the line. As we did so, the revenants seemed to let up. The new ones stopped charging and stuck back at the tree line. What the hell are they doing? I asked. It was then that I noticed a woman in white robes approaching us. She had dark hair and white paint covering her face. She was also living, so that meant she wasn't a revenant. She also walked with a gracefulness to her. I can remember thinking that she was probably beautiful at one point, before her eyes and teeth went inky black. Romans, she called out with a sinister smile. You're outnumbered. You can't fight here forever. Listen to my offer, for I shall only make it once. She started. I turned and eyed Maxis, who smirked at me. Fight? I shouted. What was left of the second line threw all their spears. Several more revenants fell. Several were thrown at the woman, but they seemed to stop mid-air a few inches from her now and wait freeze. Augustus, for the knife, Maxis commanded. Augustus knocked an arrow, its tip glowing a bright blue color as he aimed it for the sky and let it fly. Then came the horn. The lifted sound. The deep bellow that signified help was here. The woman had fallen victim to Quintus's plan, like a rat in a trap, as he had placed his forces less than a mile away from our position. She turned and eyed us when she realized what was about to happen. There were thousands of us coming, and now she was stuck with her back to a cliff. You see, we had known that she could somehow hear us in our tent, so Quintus had given us written orders that morning. And we knew as soon as we went to Cain that she'd come screaming in. The woman could have tried to run, but she didn't. She only pressed her attack harder. Can't stop for the queen. She bellowed. The revenants marched again, and this time even harder. My mind braced for the impact. The only difference this time is that Merlin didn't have to hold back. I watched as a wall of fire 10 feet high conjured out just outside the shield wall, incinerating anything and everything that attacked it. Godleader Cain shuffled his way to the cave entrance behind me. I turned to see him with one hand up and an angry glint in his eye. That was when the woman was ripped into the flames, whilst clutching her throat. Cain summoned her to him, leaving her suspended for a moment. You are not in the with, he said with disgust. But I am virtual vessel. Something you will never be. She raised. He gave her a look of pure disgust before summoning her closer. You are nothing but a slave, he said, before tapping her on the forehead. The woman fainted. By then, Quintus and the Legion had completely enveloped the remaining revenants. It took a few hours, but we eventually killed them all. No one was brought to Quintus's name to be questioned. I was present, as was King, Merlin, Vexus, and Solaris. It turned out she was a former star called Gwen. Her father had been killed by a rival Gwen the previous year, and she had been gang fighting. There is the finish of this, promising her revenge in return for the stone. The story was simple. Ragnar and deeply bothered Quintus. Later that night, we celebrated. By we and me, Vexus, Solaris, Princess, and Augustus sat around one of the campfires and drank wine. The soldiers around us celebrated as well, but they were lost in their revelry. Vexus was quiet, which was normal. Usually after a victory, he'd sit near the fire and stare into it. He had been like that since looking them ripped apart by a giant spider. Solaris was already intoxicated, or as intoxicated as one could get with your river running through their veins. He and Vexus laughed about something that I missed. Augustus eyed. He knew what was eliminated. 6. He said. A 2 train. What? 6 men. That's unrealistic. What? Augustus said. 6 more than I break. How could your Nexus exist? I turned to him. 6 men give their lives for the ninth. He said softly. For the ninth. For the ninth. Solaris called out drunkenly. The entire camp of soldiers called out as well for wrongness. I swear death before. You were a good century in one piece. I'm dedicate to you. Each of those men would have happily died for your kin if you had asked them. Vexus said with a soft smile. I took a deep breath. I took another sip of wine. So, what now? I asked. What do you mean, what now? The girl. We all heard what she said. And that's just not it as you thought.
Sorry about that.
I suppose we'll find out soon enough. Right now, we revel. Solaris said as he stood up and almost immediately fell over. Princess helped the man off the floor. All right, buddy, you're done, he said softly. I could still see Max's pondering. I knew his mind was in the same place as mine. This can't be over. Can it? It's not. Quintus's voice said from behind us. Both Maxis and I stood up and saluted him. Quintus, however, was far from alone. He was flanked on his right by 2 men, one with dark brown hair and a stern look on his face. He wore similar black armor to Quintus, but his was different in the sense that instead of a sword on his hip, he has a massive silver-bladed scythe in one hand. The next was a man in what I could only describe as black Greek hoplite armor with weapons to match. Then came the woman on his left, who wore black armor as well. Only she didn't have any weapons. She had dark hair and a greenish tint to her skin. We should talk. You're not going to like what comes next. As it turned out, Quintus wasn't even human. At least, not anymore. I guess I could say the same thing about us. But he was something beyond what we were. In the Bible, they refer to as the four horsemen of the apocalypse. But like many religious texts, in the Bible, the men who wrote it seem to have grossly misunderstood what it is they
You know
wrote.
what? This is a good spot.
You see,
It's like really halfway. So, like, comment, and subscribe. This is gonna be part 1. Finally complete. I've already made like 5 episodes, but this is part 1.